man lies down in a lavish, custom-built bed, threads of Egyptian cotton embracing him, soundproofing sealing the room from the noise of the city he owns. Yet, he cannot close his eyes. His mind is a ledger, scrolling through liabilities, appointments, the maintenance schedule of his multiple properties, the political maneuvering of his subordinates, and the looming fear of losing it all. Across town, another man sleeps on a simple cot in an apartment sparsely furnished, his walls bare, his calendar empty, his bank account modest but stable. This second man sleeps deeply, breathing evenly, his rest uninterrupted by the phantom alarms of administrative dread. He sleeps the sleep of a king, unbound and profoundly secure. Why? Niccolò Machiavelli, the strategist who decoded the mechanics of human ambition, provides the brutal answer. It is not wealth that grants security. It is the absence of strategic vulnerability. The man with the empty home is not poor, he is optimized. He has achieved a state of strategic lightness that the burdened man, trapped by the bureaucracy of his own success, can never attain. The modern world tells us that power is accumulation, that happiness is measured in square footage and possessions. Machiavelli corrects this lethal misunderstanding. Power is freedom, and freedom is defined by what you do not possess. The empty home is the ultimate fortress. We are about to dive deep into a paradox that changes how you view success itself. But first, since this conversation is about the foundation of strategic peace, tell me immediately, where are you building your foundation? Which city are you watching this from right now? Drop the name below, and let us commence the strategy of liberation. The first principle of power, understood by every prince who successfully navigated the treachery of the Renaissance court, is that fortune hates a slow target. Fortune, the relentless river of fate and chance, constantly shifts the political, economic, and social terrain. To survive, a leader must be nimble, capable of pivoting instantly, abandoning fixed positions without regret, and adapting to the sudden, violent turns of circumstance. The man who accumulates, who builds an empire of possessions, commits strategic suicide by becoming heavy. Every single asset, from the antique watch to the sprawling estate, acts as an anchor. It requires administration, protection, and maintenance. Every object is a claim on his most precious resource, his time. Every liability is a leash held by fortune, giving her leverage to drag him into unnecessary conflicts. Think of the sheer logistical weight of the wealthy man's life. He does not own his possessions. They own him. He is the manager of his things rather than the master of his time. He spends hours meeting with lawyers, insurance brokers, financial advisors, and maintenance crews. He worries about property tax assessments, the loyalty of his household staff, the market volatility affecting his luxury holdings, and the security system for his art collection. These are not signs of success. They are administrative chains forged in gold. Machiavelli understood that the true enemy of the powerful is distraction. When a crisis hits, a political shift, an economic downturn, a sudden personal threat, the man with the heavy home must first dedicate his energy to protecting his material infrastructure. He is fighting a war on two fronts, the external threat and the internal defense of his assets. He cannot focus entirely on the solution because he is distracted by the fear of loss. His decision-making is compromised by material considerations. He must constantly calculate, if I make this aggressive move, will I jeopardize the foundation that holds all my wealth? The man with the empty home faces the same crisis, but his response is pure, unadulterated strategy. He has minimized his logistical footprint. When the market collapses, he feels the financial impact, but he does not face the administrative panic of preserving complex assets. When he needs to move, he moves immediately. When he needs to pivot his strategy, he is not constrained by fixed overhead. He is a ghost in the machine, able to slip through the snares of fortune simply because she has nothing substantial to grasp. This is the deeper meaning of the king's sleep. It is the sleep of strategic solvency. The empty home translates directly into zero strategic hostages. Machiavelli warned that to maintain a successful state, a prince must ensure his subjects do not harbor deep resentment, but equally, he must avoid giving them the means to exploit him. The principle applies perfectly to personal administration. Every possession is a weakness that can be exploited by users, enemies, and even the relentless erosion of time. Consider the complexity of human interaction built around possessions. The man with the mansion must navigate the loyalties of subordinates, staff who know his routines, his vulnerabilities, and his schedule. He is constantly managing the politics of delegation, fearing betrayal from within his own walls. His generosity becomes transactional. His relationships are often conditional on the maintenance of his lifestyle. He is paying a heavy psychic tax just to maintain the illusion of control over his domain. The man with the empty home operating with minimal complexity is harder to penetrate. He has fewer necessary dependencies. His circle is smaller, built on loyalty rather than necessity. He does not need staff to maintain a vast, demanding infrastructure. He minimizes the points of failure where an enemy could introduce sabotage, gather intelligence, or exploit administrative slack. The modern mind confuses resilience with resources. We believe that the more resources we have, the more resilient we are. Machiavelli would argue the opposite. Resilience is the capacity to endure loss without breaking, and this capacity is maximized when the potential for loss is minimized. The man sleeping like a king has achieved psychological resilience through deliberate strategic poverty. He is poor in attachments, but rich in freedom. The fear that plagues the wealthy, the anxiety of more, is absent. This anxiety is a profound weakness. The fear of losing power often corrupts decision-making more than the desire to gain it. When a man has accumulated so much that the thought of divestment causes actual physical and emotional pain, he is paralyzed. He clings to the past, to the things that defined his previous success, even when the strategic landscape demands radical change. He cannot sell the house that defined his status. He cannot fire the employee who has become a social fixture. He cannot abandon the failing project because too much pride and capital have been invested. He is trapped by sunk costs, material and emotional. The sleeper in the empty home, however, operates from a state of neutral strategic ground. He views every asset, every relationship, every engagement as entirely disposable if it no longer serves the higher objective of his freedom and advancement. His house is just shelter. His car is just transport. His job is just a strategic position. When the objective shifts, he burns the ships without looking back. This ruthless detachment is what Machiavelli admired, the capacity for calculated, cold indifference when strategy demands it. This ability to decouple emotional worth from material possession grants an incredible tactical advantage. While his opponent is busy agonizing over the loss of his reputation or the liquidation of his non-performing assets, the man of strategic lightness is already executing the next move. He has the speed of a man running unburdened, while the opponent is still shuffling under the weight of his own empire. The empty home is not just an administrative advantage, it is a declaration of invulnerability. To fully grasp the depth of this Machiavellian principle, we must examine the concept of necessity. A prince, Machiavelli states, should never be seen to act out of sheer whim, but only out of compelling necessity. This appearance of necessity justifies harsh action and earns respect. The man with the empty home is constantly operating from a position of necessity defined by his mission, not by his maintenance. He does not take on projects to pay the mortgage on a status symbol. He does not accept partnerships to fund a sprawling, expensive lifestyle. Every action he takes is viewed through the lens of strategic advancement, because he does not have the administrative distraction of keeping up appearances. Conversely, the burdened man constantly acts out of the necessity of feeding the machine. His decisions are often dictated by cash flow, debt service, and the relentless demands of his overhead. His actions are predictable because his needs are visible. An intelligent enemy can easily calculate his strategic pressure points, financial stress, personal obligations, or the vulnerability of a key property. The heavy man is an open book of demands. The man of lightness is a closed system. His necessities are simple: survival, strategic movement, and core objectives. He is harder to read, harder to pressure, and his actions carry more genuine weight because they are not perceived as desperate measures to sustain a collapsing infrastructure. He has simplified his life to the point where all his energy is focused outward, on his strategic aims, rather than inward, on his own self-preservation. This profound lack of internal administrative drain is the fuel for the king's sleep. Sleep is the ultimate vulnerability, and the man who sleeps soundly does so because his subconscious mind has no ledger to balance. We must challenge the cultural conditioning that equates complexity with accomplishment. The modern hero is often depicted as the master of a million moving parts, the CEO juggling global subsidiaries, the politician managing complex coalitions, the multi-hyphenate creator. Yet Machiavelli would see these figures as strategically brittle. The more moving parts there are, the greater the chance of catastrophic failure, especially when one part fails unpredictably. The strategic genius lies in reduction, not expansion. The empty home is the physical embodiment of Occam's razor applied to power. The simplest explanation, or the simplest structure, is almost always the most secure. The man who sleeps soundly has perfected the art of strategic omission. He has systematically stripped away everything that does not contribute directly to his core mission. He has eliminated the clutter of indecision, the weight of superfluous relationships, and the administrative tax of status symbols. His life is a lean, agile mechanism designed for maximum velocity. This lightness allows for unparalleled speed in the execution of virtue. Virtue, in the Machiavellian sense, is not moral goodness, but competence, skill, and strategic effectiveness. The moment a strategic opportunity appears, the empty home man can seize it, unencumbered by the need for lengthy consultation, complex liquidation, or internal debate over asset protection. He can be decisive because his stakes are personal, not institutional. He is capable of moving his entire operation with the speed of thought. Contrast this with the king who must convene his council, consult his treasury, and secure his borders before taking a single necessary action. That delay, caused by the complexity of his own kingdom, is precisely the window fortune exploits. The empty home eliminates the council, bypasses the treasury, and makes the strategic perimeter the boundaries of the man himself. This strategic simplicity also provides a shield against the pervasive human tendency towards envy and resentment. The highly visible, accumulating man is a magnet for discontent. His conspicuous consumption provokes the envy of his peers and the resentment of the populace. Machiavelli stressed that the prince must avoid being hated, and one of the fastest routes to hatred is ostentation. The man of strategic lightness, operating without the trappings of excessive wealth, avoids this target on his back. His empty home lifestyle is subtle, functional, and devoid of unnecessary provocation. He is underestimated by his rivals, who look at his modest physical presentation and assume a lack of ambition or capacity. This underestimation is a strategic asset of immense value. While his opponents are focused on attacking the loud, visible, and heavy targets, the empty home strategist moves in the periphery, building real power quietly, undisturbed by the drama of high visibility. The king's sleep is therefore the peace of the underestimated. He knows he is secure because his vulnerability is low and his administrative overhead is minimal. He sleeps deeply because the internal conflict of managing excess has been resolved through deliberate, strategic reduction. He has traded the temporary satisfaction of accumulation for the lasting power of adaptability. We have uncovered the foundational concept. Strategic lightness equals profound peace. Now solidify this lesson. I need your commitment to this principle. Craft a powerful affirmation, a mantra of freedom that summarizes this strategic lightness. Post it immediately. We are building a community of strategic thinkers. Your agreement validates this strategic path. Demonstrate your resolve right now. Press that like button. It confirms your commitment to true, unburdened power. Subscribe to ensure you never miss the strategies that elite men use to conquer fortune itself. You are securing your future influence. We have established the foundation of strategic freedom, but freedom alone is not power. Next time we move from the empty home to the occupied castle, we are going to reveal the critical relationship that dictates if your strategic lightness translates into actual, lasting domination, and why nearly all successful men misunderstand this necessary partnership. Prepare for the next stage of power. The modern tragedy is not the lack of possessions, but the abundance of them. The man believes that by acquiring more, he is building a fortress against fortune, securing his peace, and guaranteeing his rest. He is gravely mistaken. Niccolò Machiavelli understood that every acquisition is a liability, every attachment a chain, and every perceived asset a vulnerability waiting to be exploited. We are taught to measure success by expansion, by the accumulation of tangible goods, by the complexity of our financial and social portfolios. Yet, the man with the massive house, the overflowing garage, the intricately cultivated public profile, does not sleep soundly. He sleeps like a man guarding a vault in a land filled with bandits. He is not a king, he is a custodian. The empty home, in contrast, is the architectural embodiment of strategic simplicity. It is freedom realized. The king who sleeps soundly does so because his internal accounts are settled, not because his external accounts are maximized. He has embraced the brutal, elegant calculus that less dependence equals more power. The weight carried by the average man today is astonishing, and it is entirely self-imposed. It is the weight of debt incurred to purchase items that require insurance, maintenance, and constant psychological management. It is the weight of the social expectations that demand the grand performance of prosperity. It is the insidious burden of an inventory that must be checked, valued, and defended against every conceivable threat, from market fluctuations to simple theft. Machiavelli would view the man drowning in possessions not as successful, but as strategically paralyzed. Consider the burden of reputational complexity. The modern man often builds not just a home, but an empire of appearance, a digital fortress of accomplishments, connections, and curated success. This empire requires relentless upkeep. Every tweet, every social interaction, every appearance at the right event is a necessary tax to maintain the illusion of control. When you own so much visibility, you own so much vulnerability. Sleep becomes impossible because the defense mechanism of the self must remain perpetually active. The mind cannot rest when it knows that a single wrong move, a single indiscretion, a single dip in the stock market could shatter the entire elaborate facade. The man with the empty home, however, moves in the shadows of this strategic battlefield. He possesses the profound advantage of invisibility. His reputation is not built on what he owns, but on what he does. His value is intrinsic, not external. He does not need to guard a dozen physical possessions or maintain a delicate web of complex social favors because he has deliberately chosen non-attachment. The world cannot threaten what he does not value. Fortune, which Machiavelli described as a river that floods and ruins everything, cannot find purchase in an empty, high-walled valley. This is the ultimate defensive strategy, not to build a bigger wall but to empty the territory within. The reason the king sleeps soundly is rooted in the concept of minimal viable leverage. Every possession you have is leverage the world holds over you. Your mortgage forces you to accept the unpromotable job. Your luxury car forces you to tolerate the difficult client. Your intricate social standing forces you to attend the exhausting, useless dinner party. These things are not comforts. They are silent contracts of servitude. The man who chooses the empty home, the metaphorical or literal void of unnecessary possessions, is deliberately minimizing the points of external attack. When his needs are few, his dependency on external forces evaporates. He can say no without economic fear. He can walk away from toxic situations without calculating the financial cost of his exit strategy. This radical autonomy translates directly into mental peace. When the mind is free from the constant noise of asset management and superficial defense, it gains clarity. Clarity is the foundation of Machiavellian strategy. A prince whose thoughts are perpetually cluttered by the maintenance of his estate or the fear of losing his riches cannot see the strategic chessboard clearly. He is always reacting to internal fears rather than external realities. He mistakes his own anxiety for external threat. The man with the empty home, conversely, gains the terrifying efficiency of the minimalist predator. His decisions are clean, precise, and devoid of the emotional clutter of protecting an inventory. When a strategic decision must be made, he asks only, what serves the objective? He is not burdened by the question, how will this affect the value of my property? Or, will this decision damage my carefully constructed image? This freedom from internal conflict allows for speed, ruthlessness, and an unforgiving focus that the burdened man can never achieve. He operates on the principle that the less you have to manage, the more energy you have to act. This is the true definition of sleeping like a king. The ability to rest completely because the waking mind is totally prepared and totally unburdened. Furthermore, the act of accumulation fosters an illusion of permanence that Machiavelli warned against. The man with the large estate believes he is planting roots, he is building something that will last. This illusion makes him brittle. When change comes, when fortune shifts, he resists because resistance is tied to the defense of his physical and financial structures. He fights the tide, exhausting himself, because to adapt means to lose what he has spent decades acquiring. The man with the empty home is fluid. He is ready to move, to pivot, to discard yesterday's strategy because he has no material anchor holding him back. His flexibility is his fortress. His lack of permanence is his ultimate defense against the inevitable volatility of life. We must recognize that the emptiness is not poverty, it is purity. It is a deliberate choice to remove friction. The rich man who sleeps poorly is constantly calculating the leverage of his wealth, how to make it grow, how to secure it, how to spend it to gain influence. This calculation is a relentless energy drain. It is the cost of managing the complex machinery of modern wealth. The king who sleeps soundly has delegated the superficial, minimized the trivial, and focused his entire reserves of energy on the core strategic concerns of survival and objective achievement. His rest is restorative, because his mind is not cycling through 1,000 possibilities of failure related to his external life. Think of the emotional cost of ownership in the digital age. The modern man's empty home must also be understood as an empty digital space. The man who is constantly online, managing his perceived status, responding to the demands of connectivity, is a man whose home, his inner sanctum, is perpetually invaded. Machiavelli teaches that a ruler must manage his appearances, but not be consumed by them. The man who obsessively curates his life online is a captive of his audience. His peace is dictated by external validation. The moment he logs off, anxiety rushes in. What did I miss? Did I project the right image? Am I still respected? The king with the empty physical and digital home is unreachable. He controls the access points to his reality. This inaccessibility is not a sign of weakness. It is a manifestation of profound control. When you are not constantly performing, you are constantly observing. While others are busy defending their digital fortresses or polishing their material possessions, the man with strategic simplicity is learning, analyzing, and plotting. His mind is quiet enough to hear the subtle movements of his adversaries and the whisper of opportunity. This quiet competence breeds real confidence, which leads directly to tranquility. The great irony is that the pursuit of material security leads directly to psychological insecurity. The more you acquire, the more fearful you become of losing it. This fear manifests as restlessness, suspicion, and an inability to trust the very ground you stand on. The man with the empty home has already made peace with loss. He has embraced the stoic reality that external things are ephemeral. Because he has internalized this truth, he fears external change less, and this reduction in fear is what allows him to close his eyes and truly rest. His sleep is the sleep of a man who understands that his greatest asset is not what he owns, but the sharpness of his mind and the integrity of his focus. The deep developmental truth here lies in understanding the difference between having power and demonstrating power. The man who fills his home and his life with complex possessions is demonstrating a need for validation, trying to use external signals to project power. This is a fragile, exhausting performance. The king with the empty home demonstrates power through his clarity, his ability to act decisively, and his utter lack of emotional and financial soft spots that opponents could target. He doesn't need to demonstrate. He simply is. And here is the critical pivot point, the place where true strategic thinking takes root. The complex man is always defending the past, the assets he acquired, while the simple man is always preparing for the future, the objectives he must achieve. The king sleeping soundly is resting because he knows he has minimized the liabilities of yesterday, leaving his mind unburdened and ready for the challenges of tomorrow. He has no ghosts of old investments or failed obligations haunting his repose. He exists in a state of continuous readiness, and that readiness is built on the foundation of radical, self-imposed simplicity. This is the highest form of Machiavellian self-discipline. It requires immense courage to refuse the perceived comforts of accumulation. It demands an almost ruthless self-awareness to strip away the unnecessary, to look at an asset and ask, is this serving me, or am I serving it? For most men, the answer is too painful, so they continue to acquire, compounding their liabilities and ensuring that true rest remains elusive. They trade freedom for perceived status, and peace for perpetual anxiety. The empty home is the physical manifestation of that courageous refusal. It is the strategic choice to remain agile, unpredictable, and ultimately, free. The man with the empty home is strategically clean. which means his sleep is undisturbed by the complicated, messy business of managing a life built on excess. The development of this idea is infinite, as the modern world constantly invents new ways to weigh men down, creating more chains of gold disguised as opportunity. The king, however, sees the trick and refuses the burden. I want to know, as this deep dive into strategic independence unfolds, what is the geographical context of your own strategic thinking right now? Tell me the city you are listening from, the place where you are contemplating the weight of your own inventory. The wisdom of minimizing your inventory, physical and mental, is directly related to your longevity in the game of power. Those who are burdened must fight defensively. Those who are light can always attack offensively, or simply walk away untouched. This understanding is what separates the temporary success, dependent on good fortune, from the sustained authority, dependent on self-mastery. The man whose home is empty sleeps like a king because he has nothing left to fear losing, only things left to gain. And this discussion of strategic simplicity and the ultimate power of non-attachment leads us to a profound realization about the difference between tactical advantage and genuine sovereignty. It is not enough to merely understand these principles. They must be integrated into the core architecture of your life. They must dictate your decision-making, your spending habits, and your commitment to complexity. The king's sleep is a symptom of his sovereignty over his own life, a sovereignty achieved by rejecting the voluntary shackles that most men eagerly embrace. We must ask ourselves if the things we possess truly add value, or if they merely add noise and managerial overhead. The answer determines whether we sleep like a custodian or a king. The truth we have explored today, that complexity is fragility and simplicity is power, is a dangerous truth because it challenges the fundamental values of the modern world. It forces a radical reevaluation of what success actually looks like. It compels you to examine your own inventory, both physical and psychological. You recognize now that every item that does not serve a core purpose is actively detracting from your peace and your strategic clarity. This realization is the first step toward true Machiavellian freedom. Now take this principle of ruthless strategic simplicity and commit it to memory. You are absorbing insights that radically shift the foundation of your decision-making. I want you to anchor this knowledge. Write the phrase, "Simplicity is my sovereign fortress," in the comments right now. Make that declaration a commitment to non-attachment and clarity. This channel is built on delivering the undiluted strategy necessary for modern competence, so ensure you subscribe and engage with this content. Hit that like button because you recognize the immense value in gaining freedom from self-imposed complexity. And understand this: if the discussion today about the weight of your home and the strategic clarity of emptiness has given you pause, prepare yourself, because the next crucial installment will not only reveal the final, most devastating principle Machiavelli taught about maximizing leverage with minimum exposure, but it will show you exactly how to wield that emptiness as a weapon in the real world. You will learn the ultimate rule of strategic detachment that turns vulnerability into total, unassailable power. Do not miss what is coming next. Picture this: the modern man, burdened by the weight of expectation, spends decades constructing his personal fortress. He buys the large home, he fills it with expensive artifacts, technological amenities, and complex systems of security and display. He calls this security. He calls this success. He calls this freedom. But Niccolò Machiavelli, the cold observer of human nature and the architect of real power, would look at this man and see only a magnificent gilded cage. He would see a man who has not acquired assets, but rather has acquired vulnerabilities. We have explored the pathology of this burden. We have dissected the mechanics of how material accumulation turns a man into a hostage, a prince whose every move is dictated by the maintenance of his possessions, the servicing of his debt, and the defense of his territory. We've witnessed the sleepless nights of the man whose fortress is full, whose anxiety is measured not by his failures, but by the sheer volume of things he has to fear losing. Now we arrive at the final, definitive conclusion, the geometry of true sovereign sleep, and why the man with the metaphorically or literally empty home rests like a king. Before we consolidate this final essential lesson in power and peace, tell us, which city are you using this knowledge to fortify your own citadel? We are building a global cohort of strategic minds, and understanding where you are listening from solidifies our connection across this intellectual territory. The king, in the Machiavellian sense, sleeps soundly not because he has removed all threats, a physical impossibility, but because he has strategically reduced his points of failure. His security is not derived from the height of his walls, but from the depth of his detachment. This is the crucial pivot point in the entire philosophy. The emptiness of the home is merely the physical manifestation of the strategic emptiness of the soul, the refusal to allow external fortune to dictate internal state. The heavy man, the one weighed down by his gold and his possessions, has given fortune an infinite number of hooks to catch him with. Every painting is a worry of theft. Every investment is a worry of collapse. Every piece of expensive furniture is a potential insurance claim waiting to happen. His identity is intertwined with the defense of these items. He is constantly battling external forces, economic downturns, rising taxes, cultural instability, because these forces threaten the substance of his carefully constructed identity. But the man with the empty home operates on a fundamentally different plane of existence. His power index, according to Machiavelli's subtle calculus, is inverted. His lack of dependence means he has achieved a level of immunity that no vault or security system can replicate. When fortune's wheel turns violently, those weighed down by material commitment are crushed beneath its rotation. The man who travels light merely steps aside. This is not a call for ascetic poverty. It is an advocacy for strategic indifference. The man allows himself to acquire, but he refuses to be acquired by his acquisitions. He treats objects as tools, not as definitions of self. He employs wealth as a resource, not as a source of identity. The moment you internalize this detachment, the stakes of the external world drop precipitously. You can engage in the high-stakes games of power, commerce, and competition without the existential terror that paralyzes your heavy counterparts. You can be ruthlessly objective because the outcome, regardless of the material gain or loss, does not fundamentally alter your internal sovereignty. Machiavelli understood that the ultimate political power is the ability to maintain composure under duress, the capacity to think clearly when the world is chaotic. How can the heavy man achieve this composure when his entire existence is tethered to the fluctuating markets and the whims of public opinion? He cannot. His internal state is a barometer of his net worth. His mood rises and falls with his stock portfolio. The man with the empty home, however, has already built his fortress inside. His home is empty because the only valuable possession he focuses on is the cultivation of his mind, his character, and his strategic capabilities. These are assets that cannot be stolen, taxed, or foreclosed upon. They are portable, infinitely valuable, and completely resistant to the ravages of fortune. This is the supreme security. This is the true meaning of sleeping like a king. A king, in the ancient sense, was not merely a rich man. He was a sovereign. Sovereignty is defined by the absence of external control. When your happiness is contingent upon your possessions, you are not sovereign. You are a subject of your assets. When your peace is dependent on the external security of your properties, you are not sovereign. You are a slave to the market. The man who has emptied his home has declared internal sovereignty. He has removed the external levers of control that society and fortune use to manipulate lesser men. Consider the negotiation table. The man who desperately needs the deal because his entire lifestyle depends on the commission is weak. The man who walks away, knowing that his peace and fundamental well-being are independent of the outcome, is powerful. His strategic indifference is his leverage. The empty home provides this leverage, this strategic distance in every single interaction of life. It's the ultimate psychological warfare against those who seek to manipulate you. They have no pressure point. We must understand this concept deeply. The empty home is the ultimate defensive position. When enemies seek to attack the king, they look for his vulnerabilities, his dependence, his wealth, his territory. When they look upon the detached man, they find nothing of substance to attack externally. They can burn his house down, and he still possesses his true power, his mind. They can seize his assets, and he still retains his most valuable asset, his emotional equilibrium. This realization disarms adversaries and creates an impenetrable aura of self-possession. The sleep of the king is the sleep of certainty, certainty that he is prepared for ruin, for loss, for upheaval. He has already mentally rehearsed the worst-case scenario and found that he is capable of surviving it, even thriving in its aftermath. because his essential self is independent of the external theater. This is the profound difference between accumulation and preparedness. The heavy man accumulates and ignores preparedness. The light man ensures preparedness and selectively accumulates only what serves his higher objective. Machiavelli often discussed the necessity of recognizing and adapting to fortune. He noted that men are frequently ruined by their inability to adapt, by clinging to old methods when circumstances change. Possessions are the ultimate enemy of adaptability. They root a man in place, they demand consistency, they resist change. The empty home allows for instant pivot. It grants the psychological and physical flexibility to adapt instantly, to change course, to walk away from a losing game without the crippling financial or emotional cost that paralyzes the possessive man. This final stage of Machiavellian self-mastery is the fusion of internal philosophy and external strategy. It is not about having less. It is about needing less. The neediness for external validation, external security, and external comfort is the virus that infects true power. By eliminating this neediness, by accepting and embracing the possibility of strategic emptiness, the man reclaims his fundamental power. He elevates himself above the common anxieties that define the existence of his peers. This is why the man with the empty home sleeps like a king. He is beyond the reach of the external forces that haunt the nights of those chained to their own making. He rests in the knowledge that his value is self-derived, his security is self-created, and his peace is non-negotiable. He is master of his interior domain, and thus, he is master of his interactions with the exterior world. His life is a strategic masterpiece of independence. His sleep is the definitive proof of his unassailable sovereignty. We have now traveled the complete path from the initial burden of accumulation to the final freedom of strategic emptiness. We have dissected the mechanics of modern anxiety through the lens of ancient power. The goal is not just intellectual understanding, but the practical implementation of this philosophy in your life today. Take this final lesson and make it the foundation of your strategic future. The greatest wealth is the absence of dependency. You are now equipped with the knowledge to begin constructing your own citadel of detachment. We require your absolute commitment to this strategic perspective. To solidify this knowledge in your mind and in the community, state your commitment by commenting below with the powerful phrase, "Strategic emptiness is my citadel." Engraving this phrase in the comments section cements your dedication to internal sovereignty. Next, securing your future is paramount. Subscribe to this channel right now and activate notifications. You are guaranteeing that the most crucial Machiavellian insights are delivered directly to you, fortifying your strategic thinking immediately. Do not delay your investment in mastery. Join the ranks of those who understand that power is built in silence. Finally, prepare for the next critical revelation. We are about to dissect the unseen architecture of modern influence, the unspoken language that allows strategic men to command loyalty and cooperation without ever issuing a single demand. The next lesson focuses entirely on leveraging the psychology of obligation to ensure that the necessary players always move in your favor. This upcoming discussion will fundamentally change how you approach every relationship, every negotiation, and every opportunity for ascension. Do not miss the unveiling of this next masterclass in strategic dominance. Your path to true influence requires this knowledge now.